Today, people want options. But in a time when every flagship Android device is running basically the same hardware except for the screen and camera, it's harder than ever for new phones to stand out. Motorola answered this challenge with the inclusion of Moto mods on their new Moto Z line of phones. Unlike the budget Moto Es and Moto Gs, the Moto Z family of phones is a high-end flagship tier devices with add-ons that are just as high-end in the form of Moto mods. But are these enough to make the Moto Z line of phones competitive? Or will this spell out Z end for Motorola? The newest member to the Moto Z line of phones is the Moto Z2 Force. I recently leased the phone from Sprint, and so far I've been extremely happy with it. I really like the feel of the full aluminum body. It's easy to grip, and although it has no official IPS rating, it is slightly water resistant, which lets me jam out even while I'm in the shower with its passable speaker. The 5.5-inch screen is a great size, being small enough to still fit in my hand, yet large enough for productivity. In fact, I wrote a good portion of this review on my Moto Z. Motorola's shatterproof 1440p POLED display is vibrant, especially when playing some of my favorite games. It looks great. Going back to that point on gaming, this thing can do it. The combined power of 4 GB of RAM, a Snapdragon 835 processor, and Adreno 540 GPU makes the Moto Z2 Force powerful enough to run mobile games like Pokemon Go and Sonic the Hedgehog 2 without any lag. And it can even handle emulation pretty well. And with 64 GB of internal storage, expandable via the SD card slot of up to 2 TB, storage is likely not an issue, meaning you can download all of your favorite games. The 2730 mAh battery gives you plenty of playtime, easily lasting me up to 12 hours with light use. And when the battery does die after a day being stuck in Naperville with a flat tire, it charges up really quickly. Motorola claims you get hours of power in just minutes of charging, and this is true. It charges up incredibly fast, taking less than an hour to go from critically low battery, under 5%, to full, using Motorola's branded Quick Charge turbocharging. It's capable of doing this through the USB Type-C port down here on the bottom of the phone. And as for I/O, that Type-C port down here on the bottom is pretty much it. There's a fingerprint sensor on the front of the phone, and while it's not the fastest in the world, it's certainly not the slowest. And they did remove the 3.5mm jack. And while I understand that more and more manufacturers are doing this, it is still something that I am sad to see gone. But of course, it's a Moto Z phone. So here on the back, you have the magnetic Moto Mods connector, allowing you to connect to any of the Moto Mods without pairing. Also on the back are the dual 12-megapixel cameras, one of these sensors being monochrome only, allowing you to capture true black and white photos, and the rear cameras work pretty well. I've actually been really happy with some of the pictures I've been able to capture with it. The 1080p 60 FPS video looks great on the Z2 Force. In fact, it's what I record most of my videos on, except the majority of this one, which is actually on my Moto G. It can record in 4K at 30 FPS. On the other end of the spectrum, it can do slow motion, up to 240 frames per second at 720p, or 120 frames per second at 1080. I have had so much fun with the slow motion. And the 8-megapixel front-facing camera also works pretty well. I also appreciate the dual flash on both the back and front cameras, allowing me to capture decent pictures in pretty dark situations. But of course, I've been singing this phone's praises for far too long. There are some drawbacks with every phone. And I'd like to start off with the camera. Both rear and front-facing cameras can get pretty grainy in low-light situations, even if they're not really that dark. I understand it's to be expected on an 8 megapixel front-facing camera, so I can forgive that. But on the rear cameras, with the monochrome sensor, I would have thought would have helped eliminate that grain. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just wish it would have done better with that. And although the plastic screen does manage to look pretty good, and it means that your screen probably won't crack if you drop it, it does mean that it's very likely to scratch very easily. The first scratch I got on my phone was just from pulling it out of my jeans pocket. Really? Because the screen scratches so easily, it makes a tempered glass screen protector, in my opinion, necessary. And as I mentioned earlier, they did remove the 3.5mm jack. I realize it's happening. I need to get with it. At least they were nice enough to include a dongle in the box. But still, I miss it. I understand that more companies are doing this, but like, why? Now I have to go out there and buy myself a pair of Bluetooth headphones, and I can't even find a pair that looks nice and sounds good and is cheap because I don't have a lot of money to spend on this. It's just a headache that me upgrading to a phone has caused. But it's fine. I have just been using the dongle and it's good. But if you have any ideas for Bluetooth headphones, comments, please. I need help. Another thing that is probably just me complaining, the phone's light. Like, really light. Sometimes it's barely there at all in my hand and I'm afraid I'm gonna drop it because of how light it is. And when it's in my pocket, sometimes I forget it's even there because I just don't feel the weight. And for some people this might be a great thing, but I don't know, it's just unsettling of how light it is. All things considered, the Moto Z2 Force is a solid phone all around. Priced at $720 US, it really competes with top-of-the-line phones like my brother's Samsung Galaxy S8. And if you're willing to hand out the extra cash, anywhere from $20 to $300 for the Moto mods, it can become anything you want it to be. It's gimmicky, but it works. But you don't even need them to really enjoy the phone. I mean, look at me. I'm still waiting on my projector, Motorola. Mind telling me where that is? But in all seriousness, if you're in the market for a new phone, the Moto Z2 Force is a great place to start. But what do you guys think? Would you buy a Moto Z? Or are you gonna stick to more traditional, like the Galaxy S series, or are you an iPhone user? Let me know in the comment section down below. With that being said, guys, I am out of here. See you in the end.